The strange fruit that became too ripe for the popular tree. An inflated ego, navigating itself through life the size of a mustard seed. Pairs of eyes and minds connected as one, watching me stand before you through a stream. The good we strive for in our lives can be matched with what we call a dream. Nevertheless, I still dream of a life so prodigious as it should be. I pray for the ones who've had battles with themselves as much as I could. I seek new ways to further myself, as you all would, for what it means to live a life of good. What does it mean to live a life of good? A question that I, alongside billions of people, ask themselves every day, yet for some reason can never pin down the answer. For centuries, philosophers sought to decipher what it meant to live a life of righteousness, a life of integrity, and a life of satisfaction. Good morning, Appleby. My name is Youssif Harhash, and I have the privilege of being this year's Colley House Prefect. I am beyond excited to be with you all here today. Since watching my first chapel speech, I hoped one day to be able to do the same. Standing in front of my peers, my teachers, and members of our community, speaking in the only way I know how, from the bottom of my heart with full transparency. The question how to live a life of good is not one that can be answered instantly, nor thoroughly. It requires a deeper cognizance to recognize the virtues of oneself. The response from each individual is unalike. A lot of what defines me as a person comes from my father. I've taken his charisma, his patience, and his endeavor to being the best version of himself. He is a man who has put up a lot for my baby sisters and I, my mother, and his greater family back home in Egypt. He takes life one step at a time, acknowledging his failures and celebrating his successes. In grade school, on his way back home one day, my father was being picked on by a fellow student on the bus. Now, based off of how I just described my dad to you, you could only imagine the way he dealt with the situation. He threw the kid's shoes off the bus. This is just an amusing story he always tells me as a means of understanding how certain reactions and situations of his helped him grow and learn what it meant to live a life of positivity. Even in conflict, my father always sought to be the bigger person despite the challenges he may have faced. The way he reacted to the situation assists in diving deeper into the kind of person he is. Over the long weekend, I sat down with him and asked, "You knew yourself when you were my age, and you know me now. How are we the same? How are we different?" When something doesn't resonate with my father, he is tenacious in the way he reacts. He approaches conflict firsthand. By definition, this isn't me. Some may call it weak, some may justify it as a means of being the bigger person, and others may classify it as a certain behavior that overlooks insensibility. Ultimately, the outcome of the situation every time is, Youssif did not stand up for himself. Youssif is soft. Two characteristics I tend to associate myself with are resilience and patience. Despite the negative connotations that may come with it, I believe these are two of my biggest strengths, and they are what drive me towards what I believe is a life of good. Now, if you know me well, you might know that I enjoy making music. Producing, engineering vocals, mixing and mastering instrumentals, you name it. I choose to make music to express my feelings and virtues artistically through a set of rhymes and rhythms and a crisp auto-tuned voice. While it isn't much, the successes I've garnered over the last 3 or so years have not come easy. There was a time where I was demeaned, brought down, and discouraged from continuing. To be perfectly honest with you though, looking back at some of these songs I made in the early stages of my career, I'm not a big fan of them myself. There are some pretty bad songs. To this day, I don't know how I released them. Between December of 2017 until January of 2019, I kept making songs. I never gave up on what I was passionate for. Although initially I was fearful that I may be exposed and clowned for doing what I did, I was set on shifting my audience's perspective by creating something for them to enjoy. I knew that through patience, I would be able to gain the recognition I sought to receive. I was beyond motivated to release a piece of art that reflected on who I was. And sure enough, it slowly happened. One song after the other, and soon enough, everybody was enjoying what I had put out. This to me meant more than anything. This is what living a life of good meant in my eyes, seeing people happy with the expectation of nothing in return. One song that resonated with me from a young age, and to this day is still one of my favorite pieces of art ever released, is Drake's 0 to 100, The Catch-Up. The 6-minute and 8-second composition is split up into two parts, with the first half discussing his ascent to the top of the rap game, while the catch-up affirms his commitment to being the best. The reason why I resonate with this song so much is owing to the middle section of the catch-up, where the artist reflects the accustomed virtues one requires to better themselves in a world deemed unfit for them. The lyrics go as the following. Maybe I'm searching for the problems, asking what was said and who is involved. Too focused on people's feedback and proving I'm wrong. They say the shoe can always fit no matter whose foot it's on. These days feel like I'm squeezing in them. Whoever wore 'em before just wasn't thinking big enough, I'm about to leave it with 'em. 'Cause if I run a game in these, man, the seams are splitting. No pun intended, but they're smelling defeat in the air. Headed where nobody took it, who meeting me there? They tell him that he's talking crazy, but he doesn't care. Being humble don't work as well as being aware. I interpret these lyrics in an affixed manner that correlate to what I believe living a life of good means. The shoes in which I step into have already been worn by someone else. The good that one was able to experience by wearing the shoes is expected to be the same for the next person over. However, it simply isn't. The good we attempt to pass on with no expectation of something in return is what generates a sense of well-being in our community. It's what I appraise as good. Now, 2 days ago, my father came up to me and told me my great aunt, who was my grandfather's sister, had been placed in intensive care for treatment. Yesterday morning, she passed away. While these events are typically hard for me to share and express, it's a call to acknowledging her positive impact on myself and those around her. She filled up a room with her sense of surrounding and her love for her family. This is what living a good life meant to her. May God let her rest peacefully. To my fellow Senior 2 students that will be graduating by my side this year, I urge you all to reflect on the idea of what it means to live a life of good and how you may apply it to your everyday lives. We've entered a new age, a class of innovators, problem solvers. We are the leaders of the new era. We are the leaders that generations will look up to. Embrace your strengths. Living a life of good is always showcasing the best version of yourself to the world. If you are incapable of doing so, seek guidance. People will always be there for you. Living a life of good is to treasure friendships and nurture them for the long-lasting future. Philosophers like Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato regarded the formation of society as a reflection of the heartfelt need for human affiliation rather than simply a constitutional connection between individuals. Of the reason why I'm able to call Appleby home is because of the support systems I am able to access and receive. Living a life of good is forgiving that one person or that group of people that did you wrong. It's both acknowledging your missteps while respecting the fact that taking the first step in reconciling will make a difference. It's only a matter of time before you may never enter each other's worlds again. Why wait? Although this may sound like a given, living a life of good is being nice to people. Show them you love them. Show them you care. I am not the most academically advantageous student in our class, nor am I the most perfect person you will ever meet. Every person watching this will have a different perspective on who I am. I have my flaws. Nonetheless, what gets me going every single day, what gets me out of my bed in the morning, is I know that I'm capable of being a positive influence in somebody else's life. A smile is what satisfies my heart. Having a conversation with someone renders me well. You are all special people in your own ways. Use it to your advantage. This is the true definition of what it means to live a life of good. As a community, embrace and celebrate everyone's uniqueness and value their commitment to ameliorating our community. We're better together. Be authentic with yourselves and those around you. Keep it real. Go out of your way and forgive someone for doing you wrong. Why not? Despite the upcoming challenges and uncertainties we may face as a community, remember to put forward your best effort in light of living a life of good. Roll with it. As one of my idols and soon-to-be competitors, Travis Scott, once said, "Let your ambitions carry you." Now please rise and virtually sing hymn number 1.